All right, so in our phrase scientific socialism, we've talked about the first half of the phrase here, that is the scientific part. And the elements are, importantly, first, metaphysically, we have to understand the world as a material system, as a thoroughly material system, reductively material. That is to say, there is no spiritual, no supernatural, no religious dimension to existence. All of that is fantasy. And then we understand the human being as a subset, right, of material systems as well. So we are, when we understand the human beings operating according to a reductively materialistic understanding, all of the thoughts and so forth that we have, feelings and so forth, should be explained not in terms of any sort of autonomous or independent sort of existence, but rather as expressions of underlying material forces. If we then take those material forces and ask which of them are fundamental in explaining our human identity, the choice is between understanding biological material forces as primary or environmental material forces as primary. For the Marxists, it's environmental forces that are primary, not biological ones, environmental determinism. And then if we take the environment, right, broadly speaking, there are any number of environmental forces that act upon us or impinge upon us. What the Marxists then want to do is say, of all of those environmental and social forces that are operative, it is going to be economic forces that are the most basic, the most fundamental. They are the substructure, and then everything else that exists socially is then going to be explained as a derivative or secondary causal force here. So up here we can say, for example, that a culture's legal system, right, or more broadly speaking, its political set of structures, its art, its religion, its philosophy, and so forth, all of these things that are cultural forces, and all of us are born into a society that has a particular set of beliefs and practices in these areas here. All of them can be reduced to and seen as expressions of an underlying set of economic forces. So it's economics that's basic, that gives rise to a superstructure that is social, that then as a package expresses itself deterministically, informing the human being's psyche, all of it then operating in a broadly materialistic sort of system. So economic forces, just to put the arrow in here, are more fundamental. These are then derivative. All right, so the general claim is that economic material circumstances underlie everything that goes on in a culture or society, more broadly speaking. And those things all in turn socially determine our individual consciousness. I want now to take religion as a working example, in part just to explain this theoretical point, but also to set up for the Marxist analysis of how religion is working itself in our contemporary political economy. So a short-range example and a longer-term as far as this lecture goes here. So the claim then should be that if we look at any culture's economic conditions most fundamentally, we should be able to see the religious views, the beliefs, the practices, the rituals, the overall theology as an expression of those underlying economic conditions, perhaps as a ritualization, as a justification for, as a way of capturing intellectually and ideologically what is basically a material set of forces operating in the world. So let's sample a few historical cultures to see how the Marxists would look at them. Take a primitive hunter-gatherer economy. The way we make our living in this particular case is by hunting. To say the men go out and do the hunting, the women do the gathering. So we have a traditional division of labor here. And so what we as men are trying to do then is find various sorts of prey animals and kill them in order to sustain our lives. So economically then, the way we put food on the table, the way we organize our work life is through hunting. Now, what's important to us here as hunters? Well, a couple of things. One thing that's important is a certain amount of knowledge and being able to predict where the various prey animals are going to be, what their habits are, and so forth. But also what's important is that if we're going to be successful as hunters, we have to have the successful traits that predators have in order to be able to successfully catch the prey and bring them to the dinner table, right, so to speak.